Intensely passionné.
Okay, what's up, everyone? I'm going to be doing a tier list on zodiac signs, and I apologize if you hear any noise in the background. That is my brother talking. He's currently streaming, so I apologize for that. But today we're going to be doing a zodiac sign ranking, so I'm just going to freestyle this. I don't care. I'm just going to say how I feel and what I've learned from these signs. So let's get started. So first things first, let's start with our first sign of the zodiac. So I would probably put Aries in S tier because I actually really do like Aries, because me personally, obviously, if you didn't know, I am a Sagittarius, so I really do like bold, expressive personalities. So I think, Aries are just very, very expressive, and they're kind of hot, I'm not gonna lie, they're kind of hot. But yeah, I really do love Aries though. Like, they're very very honest, I really love their honesty, and I get that, sometimes it can be really competitive, really impulsive, but I can move forward with that, because like I can deal with that in a way that's not doesn't hinder me, because it's very relatable. So but yeah, I think Aries is very, very good in terms of in my in my listing. I think they're very good. Next is Taurus. Now, I think Tauruses are like, I would say they're right now currently I would say they're B tier, but I want to say I put them in B tier because I feel like Tauruses, they're very like, two things. They can be very committed and very loyal. On the other hand, they can be very, very stubborn. And if they're really unhealthy, they can be really, really stubborn, and kind of in a way that's just hard to deal with. You know what I'm saying? And I think Tauruses, like I said, I think they're very great. I like how they're very grounded and they're very like reasonable. But I'm gonna put them in B tier because I genuinely think that they could be. They're not great as Aries. Like, that's what I would say. Let's move on to Gemini. Now, Gemini is very interesting because Gemini to me is, I think Geminis are very smart and intellectual. That's how they kind of are. But they also are very inconsistent, and their inconsistency, especially if it's unhealthy Gemini, I feel like that is a big no for me. And also the fact that me as a person, I have a little bit of Scorpio in my chart, so I kind of like a little depth, and Geminis kind of are more surface level in terms of what they talk about. So I think Geminis will go into C tier, because in terms of how long we would stick together, or like stay if we were not just in a relationship, in a friendship or whatever, I feel like it wouldn't take that long for a Gemini to just be like, you know what, I'm gonna leave. Because Geminis, I feel like they get that stimulation and that kind of approval, not approval, but just like that kind of like, because they're always bored, right? They need something to stimulate them, and I feel like that stimulation from that quick conversation or quick something, I can't really give that to them because I'm not necessarily like that. I'm more like emotionally driven, so they can't really understand that. So I would put Gemini in C tier. Next is Cancer. And now Cancer is very interesting for me because I think Cancers are very, emotionally integral to, zodiac, and also just people in general. But I think, me personally, my experience with Cancer, I think I'm gonna put them in D tier because of the fact they're not bad, but they're just not my thing. If we're gonna, how I'm measuring this is basically based on like how good I connect with them, and I would say Cancers, I just don't connect with them. And that doesn't mean no one can't, right? It just means that I just personally can't, and it's just like a preference thing. So I put Cancer in D. Now next ranking is gonna be Leos, and me personally, I think your brownies are in the fridge, in the container. There's a red lid. Now on Leos, for me, I think they're a mixed bag. For me, I think me personally, my experience, and I think Leos are very fiery, and they're very like expressive, right? But in my opinion, I feel like they're not necessarily someone, you know, depending on whether they're healthy or not. I don't really think they're someone to go to in terms of, you know, because I'm very okay, I'm just gonna keep saying this, but I am a very deep person, so I don't, you know, there's a lot of complexity when it comes to emotions and all that shit, and I feel like Leos, they just don't have it for me. I feel like, me personally, Leos, they're just like very surface level, and I feel like, you know, maybe that could be, I mean, you know, I do have some Leo friends, if I'm being honest, but, you know, I'm not gonna lie, majority of the Leos that you know, aside from the majority of Leos I know, I think they're not necessarily as deep. But I would say July Leos are probably my favorite. But I think if we're gonna rank the majority of Leos, like August and stuff, or second, third decan Leos, I would probably put them in C tier. I don't think they're as bad as Cancer. You know, Cancers for me, they're just kind of like, I feel like they're emotionally manipulative. But like I said, it kind of is a double-sided coin. And they could be, you know, healthier, and they could, you know, be emotionally more mature. You know, there's definitely, you know, a Cancer probably out there that is more emotionally mature. But in my experience, I feel like it's not just about emotional maturity for me. I think it's just more about just willingness to allow like expression, not just expression, but the willingness to just be yourself. I think in my experience as a Sagittarius, I feel like I have done and said things that are a little bit too much for a Cancer to handle. So I can't me personally, I can't have that. So moving on to the next one. Oh my god. Okay, Virgos. I think Virgos are just, they're something, you know. I mean, they're very analytical, very critical, and, you know, depending on, you know, the type of Virgo, and I'm just talking about majority of Virgos that I know of, to me, that I feel like they're very critical. And, you know, my type of personality, I feel like it's just, we're just two different personalities, and I feel like Virgos are just the worst type of personality to be around for a person like me, because I feel like Virgos are just more like, oh, you know, you need to do it like this, you need to do it like that, you need to be a certain way or something like that. And I just don't agree with Virgos mentality for just, you know, being perfectionistic or detail oriented. I feel like, you know, allowing yourself to express, you know, just allowing your expressing yourself is more important than, you know, being what Virgos like to call refinement or improvement. But, you know, obviously in my experience, I just don't find that their ways are my type of preference. So I'm gonna put Virgos in D tier, not because I hate them, but because of the fact that I don't agree. Same thing with Cancer. I don't really agree with, like, you know, a Cancer can be very, this is the thing, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, I'm just saying Cancers can be very needy, and I can't give them that. I can't give them that comfort that they need, because I'm not like that. I'm more bold, I'm more like honest and forward with what I feel. So that's how I feel about Virgo. I feel like it's kind of similar, not in a comfort way, but more in like a strategic, not a strategic, but more like a structure way. I can't give them that structure. So, or whatever they're looking for, that perfection, I can't give it to them. So it's never going to satisfy them, and I'm never going to be satisfied with them. So I'm going to put Virgo in D tier. Okay, now Libra. So Libra is, um is interesting, but I don't really know much Libra, so it's really hard to determine this. But the couple of Libras I do know, I feel like in my experience they are kind of, I'll probably put them in C tier, because they're kind of like, they're not as bad as Virgos or Cancers, but they're not great. Probably because in my experience Libras can be very, even though they're very diplomatic, very intelligent, very wary of social dynamics, I think that they like to overthink and they're very indecisive a lot, and sometimes they can also be very people pleasers, like do that a lot. They're very like, oh, like wanting to satisfy everyone. But you know, I have a Libra moon, I kind of get what they mean. But in my personal experience, if that becomes too extreme, which is unhealthy Libras, that would be a problem, and I can't necessarily have that. But they're not, like I said, they're not as bad as a Cancer or Virgo. I feel like I could live in, live with it, deal with, a Libra being indecisive. Maybe, they need some, like not stability, but they need like harmony. I can give them that, because I mean, me personally, I am a Libra moon, so I definitely can do that. All right, what comes after Libra? Was it supposed to be Virgo? I don't even know. No, okay, Scorpio comes out there. All right, so Scorpio, I don't know much Scorpios, but I do really like Scorpios, so I'm gonna put them in S tier, because in my experience, and I might change my mind, because I don't know Scorpios well enough to know, because I know they have a controlling side, but that's also like not the reason why I like them so much. I think it's because they're so, I feel like maybe it's because I'm intense as well, but I like it. I like their intensity. I like how they're sarcastic. I kind of get that, I kind of get their humor, and I kind of get them. Like, I don't know why, but I really like them. Same thing like Aries. I don't know, maybe it's because I like dominating personalities, but I just like that. I feel like I resonate with that with a lot. Not just because, oh, they're just dominate, they want to be better. It's more about like not wanting to dominate, but more about like transforming yourself. I feel like Aries and Scorpio can easily do that if they're locked in. And I just really love that. I love that kind of mental state of like, I just need to do this. I need to challenge myself and bring myself to a better place. I like that. Alright, so Sagittarius. I'm gonna put them in A tier. I'm not gonna be egotistical because I'm a Sagittarius. I'm gonna just say A tier, because in my experience, majority of Sagittarius are very optimistic. I mean, that's just a natural trait of ours, but more importantly, I've seen that they're very like impulsive, and also very spontaneous and exciting, and whatever the word is, like life at the party is what I'm trying to say. And I feel like in my opinion, I don't really like that. I don't really like a Sagittarius, and it's funny because I am a Sagittarius, but I don't really align with the majority of like those extroverted second, third decan Sagittariuses. I'm more like, to myself, maybe that's because of the Scorpio energy and 8th house energy I have, but I feel like Sagittarius is very, maybe I'm just talking about, maybe it's the unhealthy, because I've been experiencing unhealthy Sagittarius, but I feel like there's kind of like, say whatever's on my mind, just fucking say it and then move on, not think about like what I'm saying type of personality Sagittarius is. And I get that, like I get it, because I am one, but at the same time, when they're really impulsive about it and they're really like, I gotta express myself honestly and truthfully, and they do it in a way that is like almost like clearly driven by ego. Like, I'm trying to say, like, if they become too extreme in that, like I don't align with that. I get wanting to align yourself, wanting to be staying true to yourself. That is me too. Like, I agree with that type of mentality, but I think Sagittariuses are like not necessarily the greatest, even though they may be nice, optimistic, whatever. Some of them can't commit. I mean, I'm more of a committed person, but most of them can't commit, and that's kind of a big issue with me. So, but I would put them A tier because, actually, you know what? I'd probably put them with the B, actually. Alright, next is Capricorn. I don't really know much Capricorns. This is a tough situation. I don't really know Capricorns. I'd probably put them in like C tier or like a tier below that. How do I do this? Probably, how do I make another tier? Because I feel like, yeah, there we go. I'm gonna put them in IDK because I don't know much about Capricorns and I feel like it's unfair if I put them in this list. So I'm sorry, Capricorns. I don't know where to put you guys because I don't know enough about Capricorns. Okay, Aquarius is actually a double-sided coin or whatever they call it, and for me, and I feel like Aquariuses can be really cool. They also can be really hard to like understand, and I feel like maybe that's because, like I said, me personally, I like emotional deep people or people who can handle depth, and I feel like Aquariuses, you know, they can handle a little bit, I feel like, but they're not necessarily in that state of mind. They're more intellectual and willing to do things that are unconventional and maybe more political. I don't really agree with Aquariuses in terms of like that, but I think that I agree with the fact that they want more space, more freedom, in a sense that they do find agency in their space and they do find a lot of like freedom or comfort in that, and I get that and I really relate to that. So I'm gonna put them in B tier. And in Pisces, well, Pisces is the final, but I would put Pisces, you know, what I gotta say about Pisces in my experience, you know, I had a Pisces that, you know, liked me. I had, you know, actually I have a lot of Pisces that like me because I don't know why, but maybe it's because like we're contrasting personalities. We're both like Jupiter ruled. But in my experience, Pisces, I feel like it's a mixed bag because, you know, I know that they're very escapist. They like to escape into a different world. They're very, you know, dreamy. I relate to them because, in a way, kind of, because I have a Pisces rising, but I don't necessarily, being with actual Pisces sun is like different from a Pisces rising. And so I think my opinion on Pisces is that they're not necessarily, in terms of like, you know, knowing that I really like Aries and Scorpio because they're very willing to assert themselves or be honest. I think Pisces are authentic, but they're not like Aries and Scorpio. I would say I like them, but I don't like them to the extent of Aries and Scorpio, but I don't think they're like Taurus, Sag, and Aquarius, as in that they're very like I don't know, unbearable. You know, maybe it's just like me personally. I feel like Pisces, I can definitely, you know, if I were to be in a relationship or something like that, friendship, I feel like it would last forever. You know, Aries, Scorpio, or Pisces, I feel like it could actually work. But everything below there, I think this would be like friendship, or B tier would be friendship. And then as we get lower, it's like acquaintance to like, okay, I don't think we could be friends, and then I don't know, but yes, this is my ranking of the zodiac signs. Like or comment something down below, like what you think about this listing, and tell me what you guys think about. But yeah, that's about it. See you guys.
Perfect.